When you're in a relationship with a narcissist, do you ever look in the mirror some days yourself and think, I don't recognize myself because my behavior is not who I am? If that sounds like you, then today's episode on my Trauma and Narcissism Redefined podcast is for you, because I'm going to be talking about something that likely you may never have heard of, and that is reactive abuse. Hi everybody, massive welcome to my Trauma and Narcissism Redefined podcast. My name is Caroline Strawson, and I'm here to help and support you through my own personal experience of trauma and narcissism, to help you through the education and all of the stuff that I have learned to be able to help and support you heal and thrive. Because there is light at the end of the tunnel. You know, trauma does not have to be this life sentence. So in today's episode, I want to talk to you about something called reactive abuse. Now, if you've ever experienced a relationship with a narcissist, and I talk a lot about this on my podcast because it comes from my own personal lived experience. And I've done other podcasts about why the word narcissist is demonized and everything else. But it is a word that we, should be allowed to be used and should be able to use without the raised eyebrows as well. And I know many of my listeners, it's so important to have someone who gets it, believes you, and freely talks about it. And you know, if you're new to my podcast, that is me, and a huge welcome. And make sure, even if you listen to this one, go and binge listen to the others, because it will really help you understand it's not your fault. And you're not crazy, because you're not. So what I want to talk about today is something called reactive abuse. Now, reactive abuse is maybe a term you've never heard of. I certainly had never heard of reactive abuse when I came out of my relationship with my ex-husband, who was a covert narcissist. But what I knew towards the end of my relationship with him was I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't like my reactions to things, or the fact that sometimes I wouldn't do anything, that I would get really, really angry one minute and then I'd be crying on the bathroom floor the next. And my emotions were like a roller coaster. But I didn't like how I might shout at the kids. It was really the overt nature of my emotions in the moment, you know, almost like I was stuffing them down, and then I would explode. I did not realize that this is a tactic that a narcissist will use, which is called reactive abuse. So they will provoke you and provoke you and provoke you until you explode. But what they will do in those moments is then sit back and smirk and look at you looking like the crazy one. But they can even take it steps further. And I've had many stories where people have said this to me, where the actual narcissist starts filming you. So they poke you and provoke you, and literally it's like poking a bear almost. You know, they're going to keep pushing you and pushing you and pushing you until you react. And then when you react, they're there with the phone recording you. And then they're saying, it's not me that's the narcissist. It's not me that's the crazy one. Look, it's you. And then they will almost use it as a form of blackmail. Now, I've not only seen this where I've worked with my clients where they have had this used against them to maybe say, family members, I'm going to show your parents or your friends, look at your behavior. This isn't me, it's you. And of course, what are you going to do in that scenario? You're going to think, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And you start to think you're the crazy one. This is all part of the manipulation and tactics of the narcissist, which is abuse. Reactive abuse is abuse because they are provoking you to react. And then that is abuse. But they're doing it on another level. Hey, look, we all react, right? We all react in situations where we might shout sometimes, where we might say things that are hurtful. We're all human beings at the end of the day, and we do that. But what narcissists do is they literally keep going and going and going. And they keep on provoking you to get these reactions, to film you, to literally highlight and showcase to you that it is not me that does anything wrong, it is you. Now, I've even known elements where somebody has been provoked so much that they have then reacted, and the police even have got involved, but they filmed it. So of course, if the police rock up and the narcissist is acting all calm and saying, look, this is how they were to me, and I felt threatened, and I felt this, and I felt that. what can the police go by? They can only go by what they can see. And I've even known some of the people in my communities who've even been arrested. This is where I'll get on my soapbox, where people are not trauma informed. And as great sometimes as our public services are, and I know there's been a huge amount of work, say with the police and domestic abuse and understanding, the trauma-informed piece, people still don't understand. They don't understand those things. And reactive abuse can really make it look like the victim, the survivor of narcissistic abuse, is actually the perpetrator. They are actually the abuser. And that can make it so difficult for you. So some of the things that I want to share with you today is, if you have a partner who is behaving like this, and you are, maybe like I was, looking in the mirror sometimes and thinking, oh my God, who am I? I don't even recognize myself anymore. Know that it's not your fault. But there's a couple of things that need to happen for things to change. Now, the one that I'm going to say is obviously not be in the relationship. But I'm not saying that if you're experiencing this right now, you need to leave right now. Safety is the number one priority when we're talking about narcissistic abuse, which incidentally is a form of domestic abuse. We just don't call it narcissistic abuse. When we talk about it in more of a socially acceptable way, it's domestic abuse. Well, because it's domestic and it's normally in the household, that's why it's called that. Well, let's call it what it is. It's narcissistic abuse. All forms of domestic abuse are narcissistic abuse in that, for me, and this is just my opinion, all domestic abusers are narcissists. We can all act inappropriately in a moment, but remember, domestic abuse, narcissistic abuse is pervasive. It's over a period of time. It's not a light switch. It's not a one-off event. We can all vent and rant in a one-off event. But what a narcissist will do is it's over a period of time, interspersed with breadcrumbs of love. We get those dopamine hits when they're behaving in a certain way. And then, of course, the cortisol production when we go into those fight, flight, and freeze responses, the survival responses, pumping out cortisol, and then wondering why we're suffering with forms of chronic illness. So it's a complex issue. So the first thing is, it's not your fault. And the second thing is, how can you extricate yourself away safely from that relationship? Now, me even sharing that with you might bring up emotions in your body like, I don't want to leave, or I can't leave. And I understand that. And that's why I always say this doesn't have to happen anytime soon either. This is a process for you to extricate yourself and have an exit strategy that is safe. Because I understand, more homicides happen in the first 7 days of an abusive relationship breaking down than any other time. So for me to say, just leave then, is very gaslighting. It's very inappropriate, and it's the wrong thing to say. Although you may have friends and family that may say those things to you, which are well-intentioned, but they don't understand the complexities actually of what narcissistic and domestic abuse is. So it's about creating that safe exit strategy. So can you find an ecosystem around you, some friends or family that may understand that maybe you can start storing things like copies of passports, bank statements, all the things that you may well need. It might be worth speaking to a legal representative. A lot of them do like a free 30-minute call or things like that as well. Also coming and joining communities like mine. I have a free community on Facebook. And of course, you can always drop me a message on Instagram at any stage. Myself and my team are always in my inbox, making sure every single message gets answered. So, we can signpost you to various things. We can jump on a call with you. Maybe there's one of my healing programs, and I try and keep my healing programs as low cost as I possibly can. That could be relevant for you. So if you can't afford maybe one-to-one therapy, this is a much more affordable option for you as well. And again, I'll pop the link in the show notes below of things like, my Instagram and Facebook group, etc., etc. So you can just have a little look there. Don't be alone in any of this is basically what I'm trying to say, because particularly reactive abuse, it can be so difficult because you start to think, maybe I'm the narcissist. I must get at least one message every day. And I'm kind of being conservative with that. One message every day saying, I think I'm the narcissist. My behavior, I think it's me. Now, remember, no narcissist would ever think they're a narcissist. But I do understand we do start to question our behavior because it's not our own normal behavior. We start to act in ways that aren't us and we don't recognize ourselves. So I completely understand all of that. But please know this is a form of abuse. Now, of course, that doesn't make it right. Maybe with some of the things you might be reacting to and the manner in which you are doing that. You know, two wrongs don't make a right. But I want you to know that if you are reacting to the abuse being perpetrated against you, there is a reason, there is a name for it, and it's called reactive abuse. So we've got to think of ways to help. So obviously we can create an exit strategy with all of this, but when you're in it, what could you do? This is about navigating and trying to, as much as possible, turn the volume down on the activation within your nervous system. So as you're starting to maybe feel your shackles rise in situations and you're getting ready to react or shout and things, you know, think of it like a boiling pan on a cooker, on a stove with the boiling water. You know, as that water's starting to simmer, that's then when we need to be looking at some nervous system regulation techniques. Now, some really easy quick fixes in this, that if you're feeling your emotions start to rise, that you are going to react in a certain way, go and get yourself maybe an ice cold, and it has to be ice cold, glass of water. That immediately helps you get back to your front part of the brain where you have more blood flow and you have more executive functioning. Also start to look around the room. You know, what can you see? What can you feel? What can you touch? Maybe go and have something to eat mindfully again. Go outside, feel nature, feel the sun or the wind or whatever, or rain outside. Just things that get you back to a sense of presence and grounding. That's not to say we're still maybe not going to feel activated, but we want to be able to just turn the volume down enough so the pan isn't boiling over. So it's really looking at that sense of presence, getting back into that front part of the brain where there's more blood flow, feeling in that nervous system where you're feeling more present, so you know you're safe even if it's the most challenging situation, and you're able to recognize this is them provoking me, and I'm going to try and not react in the manner in which they want you to react, because that's why they're doing it, so they can take the higher ground. I hope this has been really helpful for you about reactive abuse. You know, it was something that I felt really ashamed of some of my behavior, if I'm honest. You know, whilst I wasn't physical, the words and the actions, and yeah, I wasn't proud of myself with some of the things. I mean, I look back and I think, you know, yeah, he deserved it at the end of the day. But then he would make me feel like I was oversensitive or the bad person, which of course then gaslighting starts to come into play then, because then they're gaslighting you about your response where they've actually perpetrated the reactive abuse. So again, I know I'm sharing lots of terminologies with you and vocabularies, and I hope that you are picking these up, knowing that they're there for a reason, to explain so you can start to understand. But remember, time doesn't just heal narcissistic abuse, sadly. You know, it really is a nervous system healing that we have to do, somatic healing in the body. So, you know, if ever you want any help and support with all of that, do reach out and I can direct you, signpost you, you know, all of these things to help you, because I know what it's like. It took me years to start to heal, because I was kind of waiting for this magical moment to heal, and it didn't happen. I had to be proactive and intentional. So I hope this has been really, really helpful for you. You know, my wish always on these podcasts is that, you know, you get to the end of them and you've learned something, and you've, you know, released yourself maybe for some guilt and shame that you might be feeling having experienced narcissistic abuse. So take care, my friends, and I will see you on the next episode of Trauma and Narcissism Redefined. Lots of love.